Hey everybody, we're back with Deep Images and good news. We're still working on this new topic, revenge in films. I'm sure everyone here has a favorite revenge movie. We're going to talk about some classics, and we've been talking about some obscurities too. So, an early bunch anything that really portrays that kind of feeling of like just burning vengeance. We're going with. So, I've got this one person named Justin Cotton, who's my co-host, along with co-host C.F. Roberts, featured panelist Brady Williams, aka Funky Lollipop, and I'm Henry Covert, and we're the new Friday Five. We're gonna have an album out pretty soon as Bill gets back. But we just had to lay down his guitar tracks. So Justin is gonna go ahead and extol the virtues of what is universally regarded as a classic revenge movie.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Well, it was the first I'd actually seen it, but this week I watched the original The Crow from 1994.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee playing Eric Draven. It's known it- well for what tragically transpired during filming in 1993, the previous year, when tragically Brandon Lee was accidentally shot and killed by a prop gun which had not a live round, but a blank round, and which then was lodged in his abdomen. And after hours of surgery, he could not be saved. So that's when I first heard of the movie. At the time that happened back in 1993, and it's known for that tragic occurrence, which then reminds one of what happened on the set of Rust a couple of years ago as well.
Mhm.
But because the filming had largely been completed at that time, they managed to get around that with some plot rewrites, and also the stunt double for Brandon Lee standing in for a lot of the remaining, or some of the remaining scenes, which there weren't that many of apparently. But it's a 97-minute film. 1994 it was released. It's a classic revenge thriller set in a decrepit modern day Detroit. It has a bit of a futuristic feel to it, but I believe it's actually supposed to be set in present time. And around the time of Halloween, which is called Devil's Night in the film, when the city is run by a crime overlord and a gang. Some of the main actors in the film, obviously Brandon Lee plays Eric Draven. He's in a relationship with Shelley Webster. I'm not sure the actress who played her. Michael Wincott, who's regularly a villain with his Canadian actor with
He had
deep,
beautiful
gravelly
hair.
voice. Yeah, I think he was in the Kevin Costner Robin Hood as the sheriff of Nottingham, or
Yeah.
He's
or
off
the
he's
Didn't he
the
also
second in charge. Yeah,
didn't he also used to play Kronos in Venom? Kind of
I
thought he
think
had.
so.
wait,
Yeah, he's been in quite a few
what's
things.
Venom? Are you talking about the band?
Yeah.
No, no, he's not British. Are you messing with us? He does kind of have that look for a while. He has short hair now.
I think he's Canadian. He's Canadian,
He
yeah.
was in
Yeah.
Nope. The only notable film he's done is Nope by Jordan Peele recently. Looks a lot different. They didn't give him much to work with, but during that period, I mean, he was in Oliver Stone's.
No, I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, sorry.
I always looked at him back then, and I thought, oh, hey, Kronos is playing that
Kronos.
guy.
No, he's much better looking than Kronos. I'll say that. But
Yeah,
probably can play
fair.
bass better. Right. So Michael
Normally,
Wincott was good in
normally
Oliver
has
Stone.
long hair. He's
Yeah,
normally got long hair and that sort of pirate look as well.
yeah. So he had long hair for a lot of his early career until just started changing it for roles. But before he did The Crow, a few years before, he was in Oliver Stone's uh, film with Eric Bogosian.
Talk radio.
Yes, Talk Radio. He had a real
Yeah.
key part, and it was kind of a fucked up character, kind of funny but also scary. And he was playing a teenager. I don't think he really. I think he was a little older than a teenager. He pulled it off. It was like a proto
Mm.
Beavis and Butthead kind of thing. And since that was based on a true story, probably was how he acted. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, no worries. So at the very start of the film, there's a young girl's narration which talks about the symbolism of the crow, and that the crow leads the spirits of those who've died or departed to the afterlife. But if the person has died in very messy or tragic circumstances where things are unresolved, the crow can serve to bring the soul back to the land of the living. Which, no surprises, this is basically what happens at the start of this film. Near the opening sequence, there's a death where basically Shelley Webster is attacked in her loft apartment by a gang of people with strange names. Tintin, T-Bird, Skank, and Funboy, who break into the loft apartment. Reason behind this, as you later find out, is that their boss, who is Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott, is trying to clear the building out. Shelley Webster had been protesting basically forced evictions from this building. But they also, I think Eric tries to intervene. He gets shot, Eric, before he becomes immortal, and thrown out of a high window from the loft apartment to his death, seemingly. You then see this young girl, Sarah, who is probably about 14, but she's Eric and Shelley are just a couple that look after her in the absence of Sarah's mother being a drug addict by the name of Darla. You then see this benevolent cop played by Ernie Hudson, another well-known actor at the time, playing Sergeant Albrecht. Shelley has been put into an ambulance. He says, without really knowing, I think she's going to be okay, Sarah, but I'll go with her to the hospital. He doesn't reveal that Eric's actually died from his injuries. And as it transpires, she doesn't survive. So Shelley also passes away in the hospital. And then fast forwards to 12 months later, again, Devil's Night, which seems to be a stand-in for Halloween. And you see the Crow fly near these two tombstones, one for Eric Draven, one for Shelley Webster, lands near Eric's grave, and he breaks like a sort of a Stephen Kingish type horror novel out of the ground, clambers out of the ground, sort of dazed and confused, heads to the building where he used to reside, and the loft apartment, goes to the loft apartment, and he then starts to have flashbacks. So you see exactly what happened when the gang of four thugs broke into the apartment. They beat and raped Shelley Webster. So in that sense, it's almost like a rape revenge film as it transpires. But the revenge is not enacted by Shelley; it's enacted by the Crow, which is obviously Eric Draven resurrected as the Crow. So what happens after that is basically with the Crow, which is Eric Draven realizes that he can't be harmed. If he's shot, then the bullet hole will heal itself, or if he cuts his arm, the arm will heal itself. Mm-hmm. So he then sort of goes on a traditional or customary revenge campaign, tracking down one by one each of these gang members. He starts with the sort of Rastafarian type guy called Tintin. By this stage, the Crow has donned this makeup, this black and white makeup. So it sort of adds to the gothic feel of the film. Sort of a lot of it's shot at night. It's dark, it's grungy, in keeping with the mid-90s, I think, where there's a bit of grunge music throughout the film, halfway through.
It's such an influential film. I mean, it's amazing.
And there's also a track from The Cure near the start of the film as well, which, Robert Smith's lyrics or vocals are very recognizable. So that happens sort of a third of the way through the film, a brief track from The Cure.
That's comforting.
But his first encounter is with Tintin, and while he's in his invulnerable state, shall we say, which is for most of the film, because he can only become vulnerable like a normal human if the Crow is somehow injured or killed. Then he loses his powers, which the powers are basically invulnerability. If he's shot or if he's stabbed, the wound will instantly heal. But he also has this fighting ability, sort of martial arts type fighting ability and acrobatism. So his toughest fight probably is at the first one with Tintin, where he beats Tintin up a bit. Tintin suddenly realizes he knows this guy from a year ago, and he momentarily gets the better of, through a trick move with an iron pipe, gets the better of the Crow, but then starts throwing knives at the Crow, which the Crow immediately catches and throws back and effectively stabs him with his own knife. So Tintin is killed. And then he then goes to this pawn shop run by a character called Gideon, who is not part of the gang, but basically supplies them with armaments. And he was the engagement ring, which was taken by Tintin off of Shelley Webster, was pawned at this pawn shop. So that's leads Eric Draven to the pawn shop, which he then beats up Gideon and blows up the pawn shop, but Gideon survives, and he's able to then go and tell Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott, that the vigilante is around, and it appears to be Eric Draven, who's returned from the dead, so to speak. Meanwhile, this is also worked out as well by Sergeant Albrecht. He's basically a sympathetic police officer who had accompanied Shelley Webster to the hospital. So Eric Draven goes to Sergeant Albrecht's apartment, talks with him, and when Eric Draven puts his hands on the face of Sergeant Albrecht, he suddenly visualizes what Sergeant Albrecht saw when he was in the hospital. He spent a lot of the 30 hours that Shelley Webster was in the hospital waiting to see what would happen. And so Eric Draven can then visualize the pain and the surgery that she went through and that she then passed away. So he then realizes what's happened to her in the hospital. But Albrecht puts two and two together as well, that this is actually, unbelievably, it's somebody who's returned from the dead and is on a vigilante type campaign, which you know that Albrecht will be sympathetic to as well. And also he reveals himself to Sarah, who's kind of tangential to the plot, although she's in a lot of scenes. But he speaks to her, and she also is aware. She has a bit of a friendship with Sergeant Albrecht, but she's also aware that Eric Draven seems to have returned from the dead.
She's there to give the inspirational quotes. Because the one about it doesn't rain all the time, that's been quoted a million zillion times. Something she says in the movie.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway,
so there's a bit of a corny Jesus joke told at one point as well when Krill kills Funboy. He tells a very corny Jesus joke at one point as well. But I think she's also there to show the human element and the relationship with her mother, Darla, who's a drug addict, but she's dating Funboy, who's one of the gang of four. There's a scene where the crow goes to that apartment. He kills Funboy, shoves a whole lot of hypodermic needles into him, but then he lets Darla live. She thinks she's going to be killed. She's carried in the bathroom, but he goes to her and again puts his healing hands on her and effectively heals her body of the drugs that she's been imbibing, and says, "I'm going to let you go. You've got to go and see your daughter. She needs you. She's on the streets," meaning Sarah. And the next scene you see with Darla, she's trying to be a good mum. She's cooking bacon and eggs for Sarah. And Sarah said, "What made you decide to be mum of the year all of a sudden?" And she just says, "Oh, I think someone gave me a second chance, but I'm not going to say who it is." Sort of. So you see Darla turn her life around. So that's kind of a break from the main momentum of the film, which is about revenge all the way through it. This is where he does good by effectively healing someone psychologically, the mother of Sarah, who then tries to be a good mum after that point. So he goes through one by one, basically taking out, like a lot of revenge films, taking out this gang, a bit like a Charles Bronson film, except a gothic, grungy version of it. So the first victim was Tintin, and then the pawn shop owner. He then kills Funboy, as I said, injects him with hypodermic needles. And he also, there's a bit of a car chase halfway through where he basically carjacks a car, which is driven by one of the characters called T-Bird, with a gang of four. And there's a bit of there's a police chase as well. The police are chasing this car. Effectively, they get to the dock or a wharf where the crow looks at what's in the trunk of the car, and there's all this explosive dynamite and other devices, and he basically binds up T-Bird in the front seat with tape and sets the car in motion off the end of the wharf, and the car explodes. The car explodes with dynamite as it goes into the water, and then he lights up a shape of the crow on the wharf as well. So it was a fairly intricate sort of scene, but that was the most complex of the deaths throughout the film. And T-Bird's offside, a skank manages to escape in another car, but again he sees what happens and goes and reports back to Top Dollar, who's now starting to be concerned about his own patch. There's then a bit of a showdown where there's basically the gang den. They're having a bit of a meeting, and then the Crow breaks in. There's a big fight scene. Skank, he's gone there to basically he wants Skank to sort of round out his revenge, because Skank was the last of the gang of four that had been there and were responsible for the death of Shelley Webster. So during the shootout, there's a lot of shooting in this film, a shootout and the fight scene. He manages to pick up Skank and throw him out of a window to his death. And obviously, Top Dollar and his girlfriend and half sister, I might add, Micah, who's another character in the film I haven't mentioned, but
Bailey, actress.
Yeah, so she played a good part. She was basically the partner of Top Dollar, but also half sister, which shows his moral turpitude in another sense. Those two escape along with Top Dollar's right hand man, a guy called Grange. So the next scene is near a church. It's at night again, and at this stage, Eric Draven is relatively satisfied with his revenge to that point. He gives this engagement ring, which came from Shelley Webster, to Sarah, and says, "I want you to have this." But she then leaves the scene with her skateboard, and as she approaches the church, she's grabbed by Grange, and he takes her into the church, into the bell tower, where hiding out are Top Dollar and his partner Micah. There's then the fairly predictable scene where there's a confrontation, because the Crow, which the actual Crow as the bird, tends to guide Eric Draven to where things are happening, or where he needs to go next, or where there's danger. So the Crow appears near the gravesite, Shelley Webster's gravesite, alerts the Crow to the fact that Sarah's been abducted and taken inside the church. There is then a bit of a shootout scene. Albrecht, the sergeant, turns up, the police sergeant. In the meantime, Grange has managed to shoot the Crow, as in the bird, and it's injured. And at that point, Eric Draven loses some of his invulnerability and can be injured, and is injured by a sword strike from Top Dollar. As in the ensuing sword fight, Grange is shot and killed by Sergeant Albrecht, but he's then shot in return from above by Micah, and he's badly injured. It leads to a confrontation on the roof of the church, where Top Dogs grabs Sarah, and he's on top of the roof. Eric Draven turns up, and there's a bit of a fight out on the top of the roof. Eventually ends when he places his hands on the face of Top Dollar and basically transfers all the pain that Shelley Webster felt while she was in hospital into Top Dollar, who then falls back off the church and lands on the spire below and is impaled and is killed. So at that point, obviously, the revenge has been enacted and completed on all of the members of the gang, including Top Dollar, which effectively draws everything to a close. Yeah, it's a 95-minute film. It's fairly tight. A lot of it's quite formulaic, I suppose, in terms of the way it follows. But I think it worked because it was filmed and set in 1994, 1995. So it's at the time that grunge was popular as a music form,
and goth,
and goth as well.
He became a like goth poster boy, and still is.
That's right, and with the makeup and so on and so forth as well. So, and the soundtrack, the makeup, and it was dark. A lot of it was set at night. In fact, I don't recall many daytime scenes at all in it. He played the part really well, Brandon Lee. He was perfect for the role. And I think he had that martial arts background, which was obviously good for the martial arts scenes in the film, of which there are quite a few. So a lot of fight scenes in the film. One carjacking. I wouldn't say it was a gory film. There was a lot of action and a fair bit of violence, but nothing that was graphic, I don't think, in terms of violence. The violence scene at the start, the rape scene, but that's all seen briefly in flashback, because it was the rape injury which led to death. That's what was the driver for the revenge throughout the entire film. So a lot of rain, I think, a lot of rain and a lot of night type scenes in the
Mm.
film, which added to the sort of the grainy sort of gothic and and grungy type feel of the film. I'm not inclined to go and see the reboot, which is on Netflix as well, by the way, with Bill Skarsgård, because I do like Bill Skarsgård, but I've had enough negative reviews of the reboot that I don't think I would bother with it. Plus, I saw another film over Christmas with Bill Skarsgård, which seemed to be kind of similar to this as well, but and his character was kind of similar, but
Hmm.
and that was just kind of a trashy, so bad it's good type film. Yeah, I wouldn't see the sequel, but I think this film, the 1994 original of The Crow, has got cult status for a reason, and it's not just because of the tragic circumstances which happened during filming. I think it's sort of that, as you said, Henry, that goth and grunge type icon that it is, because of the way, because of the its setting and his character in it. I think everyone here has probably seen the film, but I hadn't seen it until this weekend, basically.
It was very ubiquitous at the time it came out. Nobody who knew about the comic book thought that the movie was going to make any money because there weren't any comic book movies in the 90s did not make money. Everyone made fun of them. You know, from Batman Returns after on, it was just like all downhill, like way downhill. So that movie kind of arguably to me, I think it saved that submarine and also influenced it because look at the look of Blade in the first two X-Men, all the black leather and the night shots and the real cinematic vibe to it. I think that Crow, based on independent comic, is really kind of the ancestor
Yeah.
of the Marvel stuff that woke up this
I
genre.
forgot. I forgot to say in my summary, right at the very end, that the film comes full circle, and that effectively the ghost of Shelley Webster appears at the graveyard or outside the church and appears to Eric Draven at the end. So there's that sort of Hollywood ending, I suppose, right at the end of the film as well. So it
He
goes
goes
full
to
circle.
rest.
So
Yeah.
he goes to rest because he's avenged, or there's been justice, and he's avenged what happened to Shelley Webster. And you assume that Sarah will go on to a better life now that her mother's turned her life around as well. And there's a narration at the end that says when someone passes or someone goes, they're not gone forever, as long as you continue to love them,
Mhm.
which is something to that effect, which that then rounds out the film. It's a comic book action, live action adaptation of a comic book character, and that's pretty obvious throughout the film as well. So yeah, I don't mind comic book actions. So I think that transferred itself to the screen quite well.
Mhm.
Better than a lot of them do, obviously.
Yeah. The
I
the
haven't liked many. I haven't liked many of the Batman films, I have to say.
I've been choosy. There's few, but a few I don't.
I
Uh,
think maybe the Batman Begins. Well, the first one where Heath Ledger was the Joker
That's
before
the
he passed
second.
away.
Yeah, I like all three of
Yeah,
them
about
to different degrees. Though.
2008 or so. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
to the Dark Knight.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like the Dark Knight. I like the Dark Knight Rises too because I like the vibe. I watched the Dark Knight a lot when my ex-wife bought the
That's a
DVD.
good one.
It just the vibe of it is really immersive, into Gotham City, and then you've got Harvey and I was gonna call her Maggie, but character Maggie plays, which she was much better than Katie Holmes, much closer to his age. There was in the first movie, it was like he's 10 years older than her, and they're supposed to be the same age group. But yeah, those
Yeah,
are
so this
pretty
film,
good.
The Crow,
I've
there was
seen
certainly a Gotham City type feel to it as well, wasn't there? With
Yeah.
the decrepit, decayed, dark city at night.
first
It was
movie. Yeah, the first movie
Oh
that
yeah.
toyed with that, I think, was Batman Returns with Michael Keaton. Anton First is set during Christmas, and he has it's kind of monochromatic wintry, and even the way that the Penguin looks, and of course Batman, and then the Catwoman. They all have that monochromatic blue
Yeah,
shot through. So obviously that also influenced the Crow,
they
visually.
goth that one out big time.
I mean, everybody I knew who was remotely into comics or goth stuff was raving about it. I didn't see it in the theater, but I don't know if you'll remember this, but our producer Duane Cochran watching. First time I ever went to his apartment, he had that giant crow poster on his front of his door. So we've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys have any other thoughts about the crow you want to share?
Yeah. I originally became aware of the crow because I was staying with family at the time, and
Staying with
one
who?
or staying with family,
Oh,
and
okay.
one or another person in my family, if it was like one of my brothers or whatever it was, had like a couple of the last couple of issues of the Crow, the Obara comic, and I started looking at that, and I was really riveted by it, and I was aware that the movie was being made, and of course it came out, and there was a whole big to do about Brandon Lee, and I was honestly, when I first saw the film, I was kind of disappointed in it because I thought it was a lot more accessible and commercial and a lot
It is.
less
It
a
doesn't.
lot
Yeah,
less moody than the comic.
correct.
But just over time, I've seen it a couple of times and I see what a great impact it's had on a lot of different people. And it's just kind of like, okay, it's entertaining enough. It's fine. And
Yeah, it has a place. I mean, to me, it's just a it and the comic are bookends. I don't.
I'm reading the comics like, wow, this somebody just basically took a Joy Division album and put it on paper,
I was
and
disappointed they didn't use the real Joy Division song. They got the Trent Reznor to cover Dead Song.
yeah, agree.
Not a bad
But
cover.
but it's fine. Um
Yeah, that was his
anyway,
favorite band. Him and his girlfriend, Joy Division.
yeah, and just knowing, but yeah, just knowing, and it got the thumbs up from Obar, and yeah, just knowing
Yeah,
just the backstory behind that comic, and that was the way he dealt with his actual bereavement was incredibly heavy to me.
it is, and I think that might be one of the reasons he liked it and didn't wasn't upset about the cosmetic changes to it. It was more that maybe he felt like they captured their story, and
But
because he
my
said that.
wife recently got me several like comic trade paperbacks, and I don't read comics regularly anymore, but I will kind of pick and choose ones that I think look interesting. And I've got the full graphic novel of the Crow at this point.
Awesome.
I'm kind of That's on the bottom of the pile. I'm kind of saving it for last.
Yeah, comic is grim, and
Yeah.
we could talk about that subject. That whole time, the early '90s, independent black and white comics, that was a thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like Faust is probably next to the Crow. I think Faust is the most infamous one. I don't really, I didn't really understand why you would try to actually market on it through a regular distributor a movie about the comic book Faust. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it would have to be a pornographic film. But since pornographic films don't have stories or characters anymore, they couldn't
Uh,
do it that way. But whereas if that story came out in the '70s, Faust could have easily been a triple X movie. But when I first saw Faust, I was pretty repulsed, and I'm still dubious about it. Like I really can respect it more, but I mean, because that it's huge, man. I mean, among horror guys, Stephen Biro, head of Unearthed Films, put out Serbian film. He loves comics, but he mostly loves horror, and that's like his favorite. He's obsessed with Faust, and whenever he gets variant covers or issues he didn't have, he'll post them on his site. And I don't know what to say because he talks about how brilliant the writing and the art are, and I feel like that artist did some good stuff, but also I don't know. And then maybe leaned into just the graphic nature more than storytelling. And then the writer
Mm-hmm.
had some good ideas, but you know, Marvel hired him to write Doctor Strange, and that was an absolute horrific mistake. I mean, at least he didn't try to make it triple X, but that might have been better. I don't know. But the Crow was kind of the easy bet of all those kind of books. I mean, because it was sort of a superhero, but it was an indie superhero. It was an anti-corporate superhero, but The movie did make it very commercial. No, I'm like you, but over the years I became very nostalgic about it. I mean, part of his my ex-wife liked it a lot, and I owned it. I hadn't watched it but like twice. I was just like, yeah, I'd like to have this around to watch. And she was a big comic head, and uh, she was obsessed with it, and so I saw it a lot, and I started to feel more kind of the vibe of the people who are really, really deeply into it,
Mhm.
and what
But
they
it's kind of a virtuous character, and it wasn't it. I mean, he wasn't. There was no real anti-hero aspect of him. He was because the people he was up against were so evil and so bad, and
Yeah,
he
it's
was
just
just trying to
right,
avenge his
right.
partner's death. So and there's also that part where he looks out for Sarah and basically transforms Darla back into a good mother again. So
Well,
even though the film's dark, I think he was quite a traditional superhero in some ways.
there's a lot of tropes in there. I mean,
Mhm.
first of all, the thing with him and Sarah, that's the lone wolf and cub trope right there. Which has been done in comics a lot with Wolverine. Wolverine likes to adopt little girls. No, he doesn't mess with them, and he usually saves them from that. Some of us picked ones that were anti-hero in the sense that because they did things that go against common morality of civilization and Western society, and yet are good people. See, to me, that's not an outrageous idea,
Yeah,
but it's still in the mainstream. Even with the corporate programming that's being done on everybody, they still want you to believe superficially, especially Americans, that everyone is virtuous and everyone that if you hit somebody, you're evil. It doesn't matter the guy you hit just like raped your kid. It doesn't matter. Vigilantism must be stopped. And this argument though goes all the way in cinema 20 years before um, The Crow to Death Wish. I have to mention this since we're doing revenge. I don't think any of us are going to formally cover it, but I do love Death Wish. I did not like it when I was younger, but for some reason it struck me well in the 2000s.
First one's great.
Yeah, it's just, and second one is better than it deserves to be. Your thing,
Yeah.
I
I think
think.
I like the fourth one because I couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, the
there's
fourth one.
lots of humor in there. Yeah,
Fourth one is absolutely ridiculous. One of he's walking and he's got that new haircut and it's all like layered and shit, and he's like holding the
Yeah,
two
and I think they're
smoothies.
walking down the street, like he and Ed Lauder are walking down the street, toting bazookas and whatnot,
Yes,
rocket
the
launchers.
final
I'm
lockdown.
like, what the hell are you kidding me?
Paul versus Rambo.
It's
Um,
come to this.
it had, and I haven't read the novel, Death Wish, but I understand it's fairly close to the novel. But so Paul Kersey in the film, he begins as a liberal. That's what a
Mhm.
lot of people forget. That's why they don't. They concentrate on the action and revenge of the second, third, and fourth. Whereas the first one, that's like the last act where it gets caught up in that. First couple acts, you're establishing. The first act, you're establishing that he's a liberal, like he's an old school liberal. He's like a progressive leftist person, and like anti-racism and anti-exploitation of the land. He's doing those business deals with that guy, and he's like, I don't know if that's good for the environment, man. But and then that guy turns him into guns. But at first he's like, no, never the guy, no. And a lot of people's criticism is you wouldn't change that fast. But I don't know. You could have been in shock and still been a liberal and hated the guns. And then one night had a nightmare about your wife and daughter being raped and murdered, and you might wake up and be like, I'm going to do something with that gun, baby. I'm sure it's happened many times in reality, but
Mm.
um, so I don't
All it
think
takes is one bad day, right?
exactly, as the Punisher said to Daredevil, "You're one bad day away from me." And Daredevil said, "Didn't you rip that off from a Batman movie?" And he said, "Fuck you." No, I'm kidding. But the Punisher did say that to Daredevil, and they did knowingly take it from the Batman movie. But what's really funny is they're not hamming it up. Like Nicholson and Keaton were kind of hamming it up, but Bernthal and Cox are like, Bernthal's like, "You just one bad day away from being me, man." There's like that's a nice cold steel. Briggy, do you have any thoughts on the Crow? You're always having sight to bring to the table.
It kind of has to me the launch of perhaps Hot Topic. I think that movie launched the entire Hot Topic genre, the
Yeah, you're not wrong.
suicide girls, and
Oh yeah, Suicide Girl.
you know what I mean. So that's a
Yeah,
deep, deep cut. For those who don't know who they are, you should look into them.
Oh, yeah.
It's yeah, which I think was pretty cool. It was like early 2000s, maybe late 90s, before people got really crazy. that was just another phase people were going through, but The Crow really inspired a level of dark freedom, if you like to put it that way. When I mean dark freedom, I mean dark in
What'd
the
you say
mood
again?
and
Dark what?
a dark freedom.
Dark
Freedom.
freedom.
Dark
Yeah,
freedom.
Okay. Want to make sure I
yeah,
heard you right. Yeah.
yeah. That's my interpretation from
Yeah.
someone who traveled down the dark places, but not to the degree of self-destruction, but maybe a death to the old and a rebirth of the new, which is what I interpret the crow to be in many ways, a resurrection.
Mhm.
And I would say reframing the past, creating a better future for people that were in dire straits. He's used his powers for that as well. So I really felt that was a pretty interesting perspective if people saw that, not just from a revenge standpoint, but it was also to avenge as well as revenge, which really pushed the story forward in a different way if you're able to see beyond just the obvious, what you were being spoon fed as the audience. There's something deeper layers there as you travel through this storyline. That's what I got from it. I enjoyed it when I first saw it, but I wasn't really moved by it until I was able to see the real subtext of the movie, which wasn't just pure revenge. It was just, trying to break through into another dimension and where that would lead you. How would you come back? What would you do? These things we all wish we knew in life, but this movie sort of brings to the forefront what can I do with this power? How would I avenge those who were harmed?
Well, when you're talking
And
about that dimension, I think it's like you have to write your karma.
yes, yeah.
Mhm.
So that was my interpretation of it. I'm a very cerebral person, so I'm never just going to look at something, at face value. I wish I could, but the more you read and the more you hang out with people who also read and understand, the deeper things get for you, and then the better your life becomes. So I would say The Crow is
Yeah.
pretty free in that
Yeah,
respect.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's nice being awake and sighted,
Yes.
even if you're poor and hungry.
That's the best time. You think rich people are enlightened? If they were, we wouldn't be where we are today, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
they're not, they are the darkest people ever. So,
Yeah.
that's
It's an
how it is.
indictment on human nature.
That was very good, Briggy, and that was a good presentation, Justin.
Thank
And
you.
I think I do want to remind people of two things. One is about The Crow, because somebody will write in the comments, why didn't you mention this? There have been 3 sequels to The Crow, and they're progressively worse to where they're unwatchable. And then there was a remake, which I have just heard is unwatchable, and which was boycotted by many, many people online. They started a petition
Yeah.
because
Wasn't there a TV series for a hot 5 minutes?
I'm getting to that. Yeah, the TV series was
Uh,
called The Crow Stairway to Heaven, and I actually liked it. It was
okay.
actually Eric Draven. What they did was they remade the movie slash comic, but they made it episodic like the comic to where each episode he is closer to killing these people.
Uh,
And but the difference is he lives a second life as Eric Draven. Like there are people who can see him and believe and think he's alive, and mainly they're like musicians and people that hang out in clubs. The musician angle of it is really, really like it was in the comics, which there's not much of that in the movie. I don't think. I mean, other than of him actually playing music. Mark Dacascos, is a world champion martial artist. He's not the greatest actor, but he's of mixed origin and he has a beautiful face and he had long fucking black hair straight, and he carried that guitar, man. Like all the iconic. He wore the long jacket. And he would like beat the shit out of somebody once an episode. Like it'd be formulaic. Like he'd be rooting, and then he'd go and hang out at a club. Hey man, what's up? Hey, what do you know about so and so? Then he'd find him, then he'd kill him. Then he'd go back up to the place where he used to live, which he's still living there illegally, or is it legal? And he sits on the round thing, and the way they rebuilt the set with the windows, beautiful. And he sits there and he starts playing the guitar. At the end of everyone, it zooms out, way out. And I was like, "This is fucking good, man." I mean, it can't go very far story wise, but it's nice to look at. It has a nice vibe. I actually some things about it I think are better than the movie. Honestly, I do think Brandon's a better actor than Mark, but I've seen Mark do great stuff. Of course, I've also seen Mark do absolutely horrible, unwatchable stuff.
Oh, Mark Dacascos. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I love Brotherhood of the Wolf, but then I went back and I watched the other movie he did with that director, Crying Freeman. Good comic book,
yeah.
terrible movie, awful. But
But
Brotherhood,
that's like an anime comic book, isn't it? Yeah,
it was the comic book, and
Japanese.
then it was an anime, and then
Yeah.
it was the live with Dacascos. Yeah. All right, so thank you for that, sharing that. Whoever just shared that, I'm kidding. I shared it, so that was kind of ridiculous. Thank you for sharing that, Henry. Okay. It's like Chuck and Bob. Sorry, we covered them on the show. That trips me out. Nobody watched it, but that's okay. All right. So come back and join us for our next installment about revenge films. We're gonna be covering some obscurities, some classics, and just some really amazing stuff. And also, before you go, remember to like and subscribe. Just hit those buttons, hit the notification bell so you'll get all of our content. Tell your friends, share around. We need 1,000 subscribers strong so we can keep the channel going indefinitely. So bless you all. Take care.
Bye.
It can't rain every day.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.
Well, I am the police. When I say don't move, Snow White, you move, you're dead.
And I say I'm dead, and I move.